Okay, I am going to try to explain the rules and the methodology behind rolling bones, since I had some interest in it. You have the clipboard, which has all the body parts on it. You have the instructions, which are very important, and I kept referring to them throughout the game. You have scorecards, a couple of pencils, a bag, and of course all of your dice. So the first thing you do is you roll your dice, all of them at once. One person rolls all the dice. Okay, so, and if they have little hands, if they're a little person with little hands, or if they're a big person with little hands, you can split your roll into two, and you can do one set first and then the other set. So we roll all of our dice, okay? And the idea behind the game is to get your entire skeleton completed, or to get as many pieces as you can to get your points. There are a few rules. So if you get all pieces for any section, then that's worth 5 points. If you get only 1 or 2 pieces per section, then they're worth 1 point each. The head or the skull, if you get the skull on, then you can double your points. You multiply them by 2. And in order to score any points, you have to have a check mark. Once you place your check mark, then your turn is over. So for instance, I'm not going to place a check mark because then my turn would be over and I don't have any points on the board. Each section has to be connected to another section. So for instance, you cannot place your metacarpals and your metatarsals because they're not connected. See, there are empty spaces between them. Also, in order to place some of your pieces, you have to have connecting pieces. For instance, you can't have a skull without a cervical spine, which is your neck, to support it. So I can't place a skull because, as you can see, hopefully, I have no cervical spines over here to put here, so I actually can't place my skull. It has to be connected to a cervical spine. I do have a pelvis and a rib cage. I can't place them both because they're not connected like this. The way I understand it, and I'm not entirely sure, but I'm about 95% sure, you can't build arms without a rib cage and a cervical spine. So I can't build any arms. You can build legs with just a pelvis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strategically place my pelvis here, my pelvic bone, and then I can build legs if I have the right pieces. And it turns out that I do have the top leg, which is the femur. So I do have a femur here. It matches my color. And the next place I can look is, do I have a... So this is why I keep having to refer to the instructions, because I have not learned all of the names, all the proper names of the bones yet. Do I have a radius and an ulna? Nope, that's your arm. Femur is patella, tibia, and fibula. So this piece here, the E, is a patella, tibia, and fibia, and I do not have any of those over here. I have a red patella, tibia, and fibia. However, I do not have a red femur, so I can't place this piece because there's an empty one in between. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna, if I place my check mark now, then I only have 2 points, and I want more than 2 points. So what I'm gonna do is, in order to roll again, I have to set one of these pieces aside, and I'm gonna go with this one. So I have basically paid to roll again, so I'm moving this piece over here, and this is my payment to roll again. And I get to pick up the remainder of the dice, and I get to roll again. And this time, let's see what I can come up with. Oh, okay, this time I have a lumbar spine, good news. I have a rib cage, and I have a cervical spine. So I've done very well. I've completed my entire torso. So this is worth 5 points here. I did really well. I have a skull, so now I give myself times 2 points. And I have a check mark, which means that I can claim all my points at the end of this turn. If I rolled and I didn't have a check mark, then I wouldn't be able to claim any points. And when Aubrey and I were playing last night, there were several times where we had the skeleton almost full, but we never did roll a check mark, so we lost all our points and we couldn't claim any. Okay, so the other rules are the skull is the only piece that can be taken on and removed. For instance, this yellow piece here is the one with the check mark on it. So if I didn't roll a check mark this turn and I wanted to go again, then I could remove the skull and have 2 yellow pieces, so I would have a better chance of getting a check mark on my next roll. Once you place a piece, you cannot move it except for the skull. All of your pieces have to be connected. You can place pieces in the wrong spot in order to make a full connection. So for instance, if I wanted to, I could place this hand here. If I, in order to get a foot, in order to get my foot in the right place, I could place a hand, to make a connection. Once I place it in the wrong place though, it also cannot move, because any die that you put on the board cannot be moved unless it's a skull. So once it's placed, it cannot be moved. I can't place them in the wrong place in order to make a complete section, but there's a penalty for that. So for instance, for each die I place in the wrong place, I have to subtract 5 points from my total score. And if you remember correctly, each full section is worth 5 points. So if I get a full section, then it'll be worth 5 points, but if I place a wrong piece in it, then it would be worth no points because I've essentially taken away all my points I earned. There are a select few situations where putting it in the wrong place is beneficial, but that's, part of figuring out the game. Okay, so I have a humorous right here, so I'm going to put that on. What else do I have? I don't have a humorous over here. Do I have a femur, a left side femur? I do. Here's my left side femur. And let's see. I don't have a humerus. Do I have a patella, tibia, and fibula? Do I have an E on either side? I do not. So I can't complete over here. Do I have a radius and ulna? A red one? I do not. So basically all of my options, I do have a patella, tibia, and fibia, so I can put this here. And I don't have, though, metatarsals to put over here, so I cannot complete my leg. However, I am still, because we played this game last night, so in order to do another roll, I could do another roll. You cannot save your check mark, so you can't place this to the side and then use it on your next round after you roll again. You can't do that. So what I can do here, my options right now are I can pay 2 dice in order to roll again, and I can roll all of these again, or I can place my check mark on the board and count up my points, and my turn ends and it goes to the next person. For each time you roll the dice, again, you have to pay an extra one. So the first time you roll is a free roll. If you want to roll again, you have to pay 1 die, so you set 1 aside that can't be used, and you roll the remainder of the dice. If you want to roll a 3rd time, you have to set aside 2 dice, 2 more dice, so you have 3 total that you've paid and cannot be used, and you roll the remainder. And then if you have them available and you want to roll a 4th time, you would have to pay with 3 dice, and so now you have 6 dice over here that you've paid and cannot be used. And that did happen to us a few times because we didn't have a check mark, so we actually couldn't end our turn. Right now, I've only paid 1 die, and I feel like since I only have 1 green die left, I feel like my chances of getting this check mark again are pretty slim. So I'm not going to take that chance. I'm going to place my check mark, and I'm going to count up my points. So I have 5 for getting a full torso, and then I have 1 point for each of these singles. So that's an extra 4 points. So I have 9 points, and then I get to multiply my score times 2 because I have the skull. So I would get 18 points on the score pad, and the roll would go to the next person. At that point, they pick up all of the dice, and they get to roll. So this is the next person rolling here. Okay. And we have a lumbar spine, a rib cage. I can't put my skull on because I don't have a cervical spine, but I can, let's see, depending on whether you think you need the cervical spine in order to have arms. I actually can't see why you need a neck in order to have arms, but I guess maybe you do. I'm really not sure. I can't tell because see how the arms are in between? So let's assume that you don't need a cervical spine in order to have arms. But it looks like it doesn't matter because I don't have any humeri, which I believe is the correct way to give multiples in Latin. You changed the US to an I, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. All right, I only have 2 pieces in. I don't want to use my check mark, so I'm going to roll again. I have to pay. There's my payment, my 1 die that I can't use again, and we'll roll again. All right, so let's see what we have here. Good news, I got a check mark, so I can save my score. Let's put this down here. I have a cervical spine. That means I can add my skull. I still didn't get a pelvis, so that means that I can't have legs. I have a humerus, and I have a radius and ulna. I have carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges, which my daughter hates that word. Oh, I have another humerus on the left arm. I have another ulna and radius on the left arm. And I don't have any carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges for my left arm, so that's the end of that. So that's all I can play for this turn. I still have 2 green dice down here, so I'm going to go ahead and chance it. I'm going to pay with 2 dice, and I am going to roll again, okay? And hope that I get that check mark so I can keep my points. See, I didn't get a check mark, so I still have to pay 3 dice in order to roll again. I also did not get a pelvis, and I did not get any phalanges, so that was a really, really bad choice to make that roll, okay? I'm going to pay with 3 purples because I'm hoping that I can get these phalanges and give myself an extra 5 points. Of course, none of that will matter if I don't have a check mark. So this is basically my last roll because I don't have 4 dice to pay in order to get another roll. So this is my last roll. Fingers crossed. I also could at this point remove this skull and give myself an even better chance to get the check mark, but I'm going to leave it there and chance it with just 2 yellows. I got a check mark. All right. I did not get any other plays, but I did get my check mark. So I can place my check mark and count up my points. I have a full set arm right here, so that's 5 points. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I multiply by 2, and my score for this round is 20, and it goes back, or it continues in the circle to the next player. And I hope you are not crazy confused right now. But I have to say, this is a really, really fun game once you get the hang of it. We loved it.